Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for being here. If it's your first time, thank you for being here, and welcome to our show, Learning to Glow. We have a great episode for you guys today. I sit down with Miguel Bautista. He is the founder of CFS Recovery, and he is talking about what's really behind the exhaustion, brain fog, and crashes that so many of us women are experiencing. I really love this conversation. I think you guys are going to too. He has some really great tips for us. He shares how the nervous system feeling overwhelmed can lead to health issues in women and where to start if this is you. And we talk about one of the big symptoms that so many people I talk to are dealing with is weight loss in this period of our lives. And, not being able to hit your goals and being frustrated about that and this cycle that we experience. So where to start if this is you, and also how the nervous system affects so much of what we are trying to do in this life, in this stage of life. He also has a really great free resource he will share at the end. So make sure to go to my show notes. I'll leave it right there so it's easy to get to. And you can learn more about it there. I know a lot of us moms are feeling burned out, especially as the end of the year for the school year is approaching, or you may already just be in the beginning of summer. Some schools are already out, but life feels pretty crazy. Personally, I definitely feel it. So I hope you guys find this episode helpful, and please share with a woman, a friend, family member in your life that could also use this information. It was amazing. So enjoy this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show today. Welcome, Miguel. Thank you for coming on Learning to Glow.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here and speak with your audience. I hope to get a lot of value out of this one. And I think it's awesome what you're doing with this podcast show. And for everybody listening right now, just do me a huge favor. Go ahead and leave a 5-star review. Jess is putting in a lot of work into creating this content for you guys. I already left my review over on Apple Podcasts, but just excited to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, everybody, take Miguel's advice. I appreciate you saying that. I'm so excited to talk to you and, your story of how you got to where you are and what you do and how you help people. That started because of a personal story. So I'd love if you could tell us about that. Maybe first you could just tell us what you do and then how you got here would be amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. So my name is Miguel Bautista. I'm the founder of CFS Recovery. We help women whose unexplained fatigue and brain fog and crashes have been getting blamed on, age or hormones, but actually trace back to a nervous system that's stuck in survival mode. So we work with a lot of people with neuroplasticity and things like that. And, a lot of them have been told it's perimenopause, like they're doing the protocols, they're disciplined about wellness, they're still crashing, right? Still foggy, right? So what I want to share today is that the piece that most wellness frameworks skip, and also why the same drive that kind of built their lives and built their success is probably what's keeping them stuck. So just a little bit of background, we've helped over 2,000 clients across 50 plus countries. We've worked with people as young as 9 years old as 86, dealing with this for 3 months or 50 years, literally. But we've been able to help a lot of people recover. So I built this, as Jess said, after my own recovery. I went from a top personal trainer in a company of 300 plus trainers. I was really fit, captain of all the sports teams in high school, to, around my 20s, completely bedridden, unable to even take a shower or make my own food. And it took me about 4.5 years to fully make a comeback. But I'm here today because most of your audience, they're in a much earlier stage than I was. And there is a window in all of this, in this health journey, where this is a whole lot easier to address. And hopefully they find this helpful.
Yeah, I think it's something that we've talked about on the podcast of these symptoms, especially how frustrating it is when you go to your doctor and you're dealing with, I mean, I've had chronic fatigue. I'm coming out of that now. I've shared a lot about my health on this podcast, but it is painful to have chronic fatigue. It's literally painful. And as a lot of moms listen to this show, we have stuff to do. Like our lives don't stop because we are tired. And I think the frustration comes in when you try to figure out why is this happening, especially for the people who are like, okay, I'm trying all the wellness things, like you were saying, I'm doing the food right, I'm doing my exercise right. And so I would say when women are trying, they finally find you, is it because they haven't had answers anywhere else and they've tried all the things and then they're like, okay, what do you have for me? And like, I'd love to know, what do women come to you with? Because chronic fatigue it's such a big window of what that could mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about this whole chronic fatigue thing or chronic fatigue syndrome, or sometimes even a lot of long COVID cases, a lot of these symptoms blend in together, but it's more than just fatigue. I mean, your body is aching. Sometimes you're getting headaches, sleep issues, like you have anxiety, weight gain, weight loss is very difficult. So typically, women are finding us usually as the last straw because they've tried so many other things, right? And I was the same way. Typically, women who get this, very type A personality, very much perfectionists. They like to analyze things, and almost like their nervous system or their brain is so hyperactive, and they try to over optimize, right? And we actually found that wellness optimized women tend to stay stuck the longest, right? And same thing for men too, right? But a lot of women get this. So what most women do is, they apply the optimization mindset to recovery. Like they'll see the doctors, and then they'll get told your tests are perfectly fine, or things are within range, right? It's something slightly outside here, but the doctors are like, well, you should be fine on paper. You're good to go. You're actually super healthy. Congratulations. But it's not really what you want to hear when you're trying to solve something. And so the next best thing they usually do is, take matters into their own hands. So it's like, I'm going to be my doctor. I'm going to Google this stuff. I'll get, third party opinions. I'll work with alternative health professionals. And when that doesn't work, they typically try to just push through, right? Or they try to making their own protocols. So they apply that optimization mindset to recovery. Like they're tracking their heart rate, their HRV, they got supplements, a whole regimen going, and then it's a lot of different protocols. They try to like really out discipline the symptoms, right? Because that mindset kind of built their whole life up to this point, right? It probably worked for their career. It probably worked for their fitness, even their family. So why wouldn't that approach work here, right? So you have sometimes a woman in her 30s, 40s, 50s who goes to Pilates twice a week, right? Eats the cleanest in her circle. Maybe she runs a business. Maybe she has a bunch of kids, but by noon, she's completely gassed, right? And she just doesn't bounce back the way she used to. So she does what she's always done. It's, optimizing for her health. But deep inside, like, there's probably a lot of frustration. At least that's what we see with women, because they're trying so hard. But it's like the harder they try, the more drained they get, right? And it's hard to admit that, right? So they start feeling, there's almost like a little bit of shame of like, I'm trying so hard, but my body's just not cooperating. So am I broken? And they start thinking like, this is supposed to work for me. I've never really failed at anything I put my mind to, right? How is this happening to me of all people? I'm here trying to be healthy and optimize for my health. How come other people, they could stay up late and do all this stuff and they feel fine? So what we realized is that same drive that built that woman's life is now probably the thing that's locking her nervous system in freeze mode. So the nervous system reads, trying harder as staying in survival mode. Like her best tool, which is willpower and discipline, is probably the thing that's keeping her stuck. So recovery is like the one place in her life that doesn't respond to being super, super disciplined. So we try to teach them a different approach. The nervous system responds to just, lower capacity activities, slowing things down, not pushing harder, like taking our foot off the gas pedal. And most coaches, they might tell women to push harder, but we try to help them let go of the part of themselves that built the success in their life at the cost of their nervous system,
Yeah.
so there's a lot to it. There is a lot to it.
I'm gonna have to play this last clip for my husband because he'd be like, that sounds familiar. I definitely relate to a lot of what you were describing for the clients that you have, because it's me in a lot of ways, and like where I kind of came from. I've done all the things, and yet I was coming up against a wall. I was not seeing results, and then you do feel bad about it. You're like, well, how come it's not working when I'm doing everything that I've been told to do? And then you push. Like, that's a really good way of describing it. You just kind of push to the point where maybe I just need another cup of coffee or whatever it takes to get through to the end of the day, because I have all these things to do. And, the recovery part is really important. I want to talk about that too, because I'm sure if the client that you're talking about is anything like me, sometimes it's hard to take a break. It's hard to take a rest or have free space in your schedule, because there's so much to do. So why not, if you have space on the weekend, I end up just filling it in, and then I'm never getting that rest. So one thing that I feel like people are talking more and more about, which is amazing, is the nervous system. So what's going on there? Tell us about these women who are thinking, I'm just going to push through this. I just need to do more. I need to track more. I need to work out more, whatever. And what is that doing to our nervous system? And why is that something that we need to start being more aware of?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the nervous system, and the way I've found this is I've tried all the other things, and so have all the other people we've worked with. I mean, the people listening to this, they've probably had their tests and scans done, probably done hormone panels, saliva tests for cortisol, things like that. But, or they even, tightened up the diet and layered in supplements. And, realistically, there can be certain causes for a lot of these symptoms, right? Sometimes hormones really do change in midlife. So the timing of symptoms does line up with things like perimenopause, right? So doctors confirm it with some tests. The framing, it feels pretty solid, right? The thing is, when you are following the protocols and nothing seems to be working, and this thing is just spiraling and you're feeling more tired and more symptomatic, then okay, if those protocols to treat those hormones are not working, then there's got to be a deeper cause here, right? Especially if you're there actually following the stuff and then you're feeling worse. Like, you're just going to be left there feeling super confused, right? While being almost in a way like gaslit by the medical community sometimes. They're like, no, you should be feeling fine, but okay, well, I'm not though. So what do we do, right? Especially for the women who feel like they're doing everything right, but they're just getting worse. They start thinking, is it always going to be like this? Am I that one strange case out of the thousands and millions of women? And maybe I'm just different, right? So the thing is, especially with hormones, because that's usually the first thing women go to, hormones don't operate in a vacuum. Right? They're actually like a downstream effect. They can be a downstream effect of a nervous system that's been stuck in this like low grade survival mode for years, right? The body can't produce hormones or function normally if it's not in a regulated environment, right? So the nervous system is kind of the root cause that causes all the other things to happen in our body. So, and treating hormones as the root cause, right? That's like rearranging the furniture in a building that's on a tilted foundation, right? You could rearrange it as much as you want, but it's always going to get crooked if we don't fix that thing. So the nervous system, essentially, we're trying to restore like a safety baseline. And in a nutshell, I mean, I could talk about this for 20 hours straight, but I'll try to condense it. So everybody has this maximum stress threshold they can handle, right? Life happens. You have finances, family, relationships, work, diet, sleep, all these things. Eventually it stacks up. If you are redlining your engine, let's say you're a car, right? Eventually you're going to have some lights that go on, lights on the dashboard. And we all know somebody who will see those lights on the dashboard. Maybe it's us. And we'll be like, no, I could keep driving this thing. Let's just keep going, right? And eventually the car breaks down. So we have this nervous system stress threshold. Once we go over that, right? And it could be just random life events. Once you go over that, your brain, it just doesn't feel safe anymore. There's too much stimulation, too much stress to the point where it can't handle it. So it will try to force us to slow down. So the symptoms, as long as there's nothing coming up in the tests and scans that clearly explains this level of symptoms, what's likely happening is your brain is essentially putting limiters on your body. It's trying to protect you from yourself. It's trying to slow you down. So the reason it's difficult to go out for a run or go to the gym while your muscles ache, it's trying to stop you or reduce that. The reason you get headaches or brain fog when you look at screens or get into conversations, it's probably because your brain wants to slow you down on all that stuff. The problem is a lot of type A personality people, they'll feel these things and they'll be like, oh, I'm not going to show weakness. I'm not going to give into this thing. I'm going to go twice as hard, right? So essentially, we need to almost like recalibrate the nervous system so that it feels safe again. And the only way you do that is by reducing these stressors on your life. A lot of it is taking the pressure off of yourself to try to like get to that person you used to be. So it's restoring a feeling of safety and really looking at, okay, what does my life look like? Where can we reduce the stressors? And sometimes it's not even the external things, it's our perceptions of the stressors. It's the pressure we put on ourselves to do that. And that's something we help people have a mind shift on. And when we do that, oh yeah, like people can see great results. There's a lot of women who like, they've been dealing with this for decades and it's just interfering with life. They can't drop their kids off at school. They can't even go to like the girlfriend's nights outs, food sensitivities, like all of these things. But once they start to regulate, that world starts to open up again and they can reintegrate back into the world even better than they were before. So yeah. Lots of nervous system stuff.
Okay, so I'm assuming then when you start with a client, you go straight into the nervous system first. Is that something that you start with? And then, you know, versus like, obviously from what this conversation has been, you're not going to be like, what's your gym regimen? Or, you know, maybe you're going to talk about that, but maybe it's in a different way than you would with like a trainer or coach. And then you start with that, but how do you help people sort of reprogram the way that they've been programmed for, like you said, you had a client that was 87, like for decades. How do you start with someone? Isn't that just the hardest thing to do? The brain is so powerful. It can just make or break how we see the world, how we show up in the world. So how do you do that?
Yeah, it was very difficult when we didn't have any protocols in place, right? But we've actually developed a nervous system health assessment. So where we typically start with people is, okay, like where are we right now in the grand scheme of this like severity scale of the symptoms you're dealing with? So we look at multiple different factors. It's like your age, how long you've been dealing with this for, what are the specific symptoms you have, what are your activity levels? And also we look even deeper into what is your capacity for cognitive activities, emotional activities, and physical activities. Now, from that, there's about 40 different data points where we can kind of reverse engineer, like, okay, what does a path forward look like? Because not everybody's the same, right? And I think that is a problem with a lot of solutions out there. It's like very cookie cutter. It doesn't take into account their capacity in different areas of life, right? So we've really figured out a starting point. And from that, we have certain protocols we follow. So for example, right, there was a lady, she was in her early 20s, right? She was pretty much housebound, actually even worse. At times she couldn't even get out of bed, right? So her physical capacity was very low. Her cognitive capacity was decently high. She could go on her phone, she could have conversations. Physically was very low though, to the point where even eating foods, she would react to it. She was allergic to like salt and water when she was in a flare-up. So in that sense, we know we have to focus on, okay, how do we build up her physical capacity? And in doing that, it's like this balancing act. We had to reduce her cognitive and increase the physical things. But more important than all of that, like a lot of it is their emotional state. Are they stuck in this loop where they do feel sensations in their body? And every time they feel sensations, it's automatically like worst case scenario thinking. Because the truth is, when you're not getting answers from doctors and then your heart's skipping, or you have brain fog, or you're trembling, or you can't sleep, you start to feel like you're going crazy. Like you really do see yourself as very fragile. And if you see yourself as fragile, the nervous system will follow that. It will become more and more fragile. So a lot of it is, first of all, educating them on what's even happening to their body. Like, why did this happen in the first place? And why are you stuck here? Right? Because when they understand this, or at least start to understand, it takes a lot of the teeth out of the monster. So the educational piece is huge. That's usually like the first 3 to 4 weeks of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of it is also building a plan of like, what are the guardrails to stay within, each day. We don't say, hey, you absolutely can't, go over this amount of steps. They're more so like safety parameters. As long as you stay within them, then you're good, in terms of physical and cognitive activities. And then we're checking in with them like every couple of days. And then we kind of adjust their plan based on that. And then every month, because like you said, how do you know the brain is improving? Like, it's very difficult to measure, right? So that's what we created the software for, the nervous system health assessment. We do it every month so we can actually see in different areas of life, is this person actually getting better? And more specifically, is their quality of life improving? Can they go out more? Can they drive more? Can they play with the kids more? Can they talk on the phone more? So things like that, the things that most people who don't have this stuff, they kind of take for granted. You don't realize even being able to take a shower, to cook food for the whole family, to be able to go to a couple yoga or Pilates classes a week. Some people really struggle with that, right? And we have to think very strategically about how that fits into their days. So it's very specific with how we go about helping people. A lot of it is from that nervous system health assessment, though.
Yeah. I've been there on the couch thinking, how am I going to even walk over to the kitchen and make dinner? Yeah. It is the worst feeling. And when you have kids depending on you and family, it makes it like even more stressful, which I think that's a cycle, right? Like then your nervous system is affected because you're thinking all of these things about the situation that you're in. I'd love to know, you talked about weight gain. I know a lot of women complain about that as a symptom that they see. How is that something that the body does when you're going through something like this? Like, I can see the fatigue and things like that, but how does weight gain fall into this nervous system dilemma?
Yeah. The way we see it, and what we've seen with so many women, is a lot of them will actually lose weight when they first get this, especially if they're more severe, because the body's just burning through all this adrenaline, right? And burning through all the calories. But then it will swing in the opposite direction. They'll kind of like balloon and gain 20, 30, 40 pounds, right? And then even with a diet, even with exercise, like no matter what they do, the weight either stays the same or it goes even higher, right? Which is extremely frustrating. And what we've found is that it really is a hormonal thing. It's the body like trying to find this balance, but it's been in the stress state for so long, in fight or flight mode, almost like it's getting ready to defend itself, to save itself. And then when that cools off and you start to stabilize, the body goes, okay, finally, like we're decent, right? Then it starts to say, okay, let's start packing in all this weight. Because if we look at it from a survival perspective, like the more weight you had, the safer you felt, and you could just last longer in dangerous situations, right? So it's almost like when these bears hibernate, it'll pack on all this weight so it knows it can last, right? Now, over a longer period of time, if you teach your body that it's really safe, there's no danger coming, we're not going to be putting ourselves in all of these stressful situations. It won't hold on to as much weight. And it really comes down to hormones. When your nervous system is trying to regulate itself back to just this normal state, it's having trouble figuring out the hormonal side of things, right? But what we found is like eventually it starts to stabilize, right? But we found it's like a hormonal thing. And sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it takes several months. Sometimes it happens pretty quickly. But as long as there's like no serious thyroid issues or other hormonal stuff going on, if you really work on the nervous system as a whole, it'll get better. The other thing too is like constantly stressing about the weight gain. That perpetuates the cycle because that will increase your stress hormones, which leads to more weight gain. But I know it's easier said than done when you're doing everything you can and you look in the mirror and it's not working, right? So we always tell people to focus on reintegrating back into life. In doing that, you're going to be more active physically. Your mind's going to be off of the stress of the weight gain and naturally it will come off. And we've seen that happen pretty much every time.
Yeah. Oh, that makes total sense. I think that's so true what you said about you get the weight gain and then you're stressing about the weight gain. And I've been there. It's like you all of a sudden you're doing everything the same, but you're gaining weight and you're just so frustrated by it. And then you are stressed about it because it's like, okay, I don't want to go buy new clothes because I've gained some weight, and it feels very stressful because it's the unknown too of like, why is it happening? I think when you start working with people, that seems like something that is good to know. Being mindful of like what's causing the stress so that you can do something about it. Do you see any other mistakes that people make when they're first starting out that kind of maybe delays their healing process?
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's so many, but just off the top of my head, I can think of two or three things that always come up when we work
Mm-hmm.
with people. Number one, I would say it's externalizing the problem, right? Or trying to look for an external solution. Now, that is the smart thing to do in the beginning. Like obviously go to the doctors, go to the specialists, go look for other solutions out there. But at some point when none of that is working, right? That's typically when people start Googling stuff and sometimes they go down that dark rabbit hole of forums and Reddit and all that. It's just like horror stories of all these symptoms just getting worse. Um, but that's sometimes when they find our stuff, right? And then it starts to make sense. So I think the biggest mistake you can make is not realizing, especially if you've had your tests and scans done and you're in the clear, that this is actually something you can fix internally, right? There's not going to be some magic bullet or magic supplement or magic treatment that is going to solve this thing long term. So that's number one. It's like just taking full responsibility that, hey, this is your body and you have certain control over it. But it's a tricky journey to get there because you do have to jump through those hoops in order to come to that realization. That's number one. But number two as well is this whole comparison trap. When you're seeing other women out there living their lives or seemingly living their lives, they're out there hitting all the Pilates classes, spending time with friends, and you start beating yourself up, thinking like, how come I can't be like them? What's wrong with me? Like something must be very wrong with me because I'm supposedly doing all the right stuff, but I feel worse. We see that with a lot of our people, especially because we have lots of like group coaching calls in the week. They see this person who had this amazing win, doing really well, and they'll be like, that person's crushing it. Like, when is it going to be my turn? Not realizing that that person, I mean, they were in tears 2 months ago because they were stuck for several months and they couldn't get it going. So a lot of times when we're comparing ourselves to other people's journeys, we're seeing the highlights. We're seeing all the things that are going right. We're not necessarily seeing how they feel inside, what's really going on, the stressors they're dealing with. So I think the comparison is another big one, which actually leads to the third point, which is really like being too hard on yourself, right? Give yourself some grace. The whole reason a lot of people are in this situation in the first place is because they were very hard on themselves, because their standards for themselves were so high that it caused them to just like push super hard in life, especially different areas of life, career, family, just showing up. I see this especially for mothers because there's a whole other curveball there where there's some guilt around raising the kids. They feel like they should be the super mom. And when they have to say no to the kids wanting to play with them or go on this trip, or they can't drop them off at school, like it starts this cycle of they can't do stuff. So they feel terrible about it. Right. And then they can do less stuff and they feel more symptoms and they feel terrible. And that's like a whole different curveball there. But maybe something that will help parents or specifically mothers is a lot of times they come to us and they see the family or even their kids as almost like a roadblock to their recovery. Because they're like, I only have so much energy, but I give a lot of it to my kids. I don't have any more energy to put into this recovery. right? So they really do start seeing it as a roadblock, right? And then what we try to help them reframe with that is your child, your kids, your family, that can be the biggest springboard. Actually, that's your fuel. It's not a fuel drainer. That is your fuel to keep on going and to keep implementing this stuff. Because imagine, yeah, sure, you might stay sick, but the other side of the coin, what if it all goes right? Imagine all the trips you can go on with the kids. Imagine you sitting on a picnic watching the sunset with your kids and you're chasing them around and you're eating good food and you guys are watching the stars. Like that is a very realistic possibility, right? Because so many people in your situation have also turned it around who never thought they would. So your brain will it can focus on things not going right or things going right. It can look at them as a roadblock or look at them as a springboard. And once they see those family as the springboard, oh man, we call it hockey stick moments where their progress is like, it's all right. Maybe it's even dropping a little bit. And then boom, once they have that mind shift. So we have a saying at CFS Recovery, you're only one mind shift away. Sometimes that's all it takes is one reframe. And that can turn something like kids being a roadblock into like your ultimate unlimited fuel source.
I love that. I related to all three of the things that you were talking about. And I think a lot of women that are listening to this, if they've had to go through something like this, will also relate to it. And if you can't relate, like, good for you. I'm happy for you. But like the comparison one is so true. I started a anti-inflammatory diet just to really clean everything up for my health. And I was scrolling on social media and I've been on it for a week or so. And then I saw a video of this woman and she's like, I've lost 11 pounds of inflammation in 2 weeks. And I was like, I think I've gained some, like, I feel puffier than when I started. And for a moment, it was like, oh, I'm not doing it right, or I'm not doing it good enough. And it made me feel bad because this person, who is also 30 years younger than me, is having a different experience. And it is a trap to fall into that comparison because the mind is so strong and powerful. And that could, taking that video and turning it into, a bummer, it could affect the rest of my day. It could make me feel like maybe it's just not working, or like some of the what you said earlier, just maybe it's just is never going to happen for me. And that is a terrible feeling. And I can imagine, if you're trying to recover, the things that we're saying to ourselves are so powerful and matter so much. So I can see that, that is the comparison one, especially with social media now and how much access we have to everybody's highlight reel, right? Like, it's not, like you said, it's not like every day is amazing for these people, but they only show that part, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, I'd love to piggyback off something, what we've been talking about with how important identity is, right? And also for the women watching this, I mean, they're doing the work. Like, nobody just listens to a podcast like this if they weren't genuinely trying to improve their lives.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of people who, they'll read a lot of science about the nervous system or just getting healthier. They'll listen to wellness podcasts like this one. They'll do the exercises. They'll follow these health accounts on Instagram, right? Educate themselves very, very thoroughly. So these wellness aware women, they are doing the work, right? So you have somebody who has all this education, all of this knowledge. She's done like 6 months of breath work. She's read all of these health books. She knows a lot of theory around it, but she's still feeling flat, right? Still feeling like there's something missing or there's some extra weight she's carrying around, wondering like, why isn't this working, right? And that leads to a lot of frustration, right? It's a cycle because they start thinking, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, why isn't it working? I'm reading all the right things. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but it's not helping. Like, am I just broken, right? Is this ever going to work, right? So the thing is, and I'm not saying all the other things don't work. Like, sometimes you do need supplements. Sometimes you do need medication. You do need other things, right? The nervous system stuff, it's not going to just replace everything, but it can be done in conjunction with what you're already doing. But knowing about nervous system regulation, right? It isn't the same as your nervous system actually feeling safe, right? So information like knowledge that lives in one part of your brain, like the front part of your cortex, right? Safety though, actually feeling safe, that lives deeper. That is like your primal brain. That is way deeper within, they call it like your reptilian brain, basically your most primal brain. They don't really talk to each other the way we think they do, right? Because you can know all this stuff about safety and being regulated and feeling and being calm, but not necessarily feel calm and not have that reference point of what safety and calmness feels like, right? So what we want to do is actually not just think of what to do, but actually feel safe or feel calm. Now, like what does that look like? Sometimes that's as simple as taking a 30-second break in your workday and taking 2 deep breaths or 3 deep breaths. All we're looking for is for you to feel very calm, very quiet, very safe for even just a few seconds at a time. Because once you feel that, now your brain, it almost like bookmarks that feeling in your brain and it knows what is trying to work backwards towards or work towards, not backwards. It knows that reference point is trying to get to. But if we never feel that, if we don't take even 30 seconds throughout the day to see what that feels like, it's not going to know what it's trying to work towards. But when you do feel that, it creates this contrast of like, okay, 99% of the day, I'm like go, go, go mode. I'm in problem solving mode, problem solving with my body and trying to fix things, right? The other 1% of the time, it's like, it actually feels calm and safe. So it'll recognize that. It'll be like, oh, that's what being like on the go feels like. That's what redlining my engine feels like. And this is what it feels like to kind of go the speed limit. Very different feelings. So it'll start to catch up on that. But when you first start doing this stuff, you need to intentionally access that feeling. It's not really going to happen automatically. Well, it rarely happens automatically. But once it recognizes that, you start to feel it more and more. And it's like this snowball effect. It's a compounding effect. And over time, you go from this like pretty stressed person who's always feeling like they need to fix their body, which in turn, subconsciously, you're telling yourself, I'm broken, to just optimizing your health and feeling calm. And that's when you can, we all also have this other saying, our whole goal with everybody we come across and work with or sees our stuff is to help them go from just surviving, getting through the day to truly thriving and looking forward to the day and having freedom in their body to do what they want basically and live life to the fullest. So creating that sense of safety is really important, but not just understanding the knowledge behind it, but trying to feel what that calmness feels like, right? And the feeling is more important than the amount of knowledge you know.
I love that tip. That is so great. I think, you can tell people who are kind of live in that space and they have practice doing that versus a more anxious person who's just thinking like, what's next, or just like go, go, go type of feeling. It's literally my husband and myself. I look at him and I'm like, wow, there's a regulated nervous system. He's just cool, calm, and collected most of the time. And it's like, I'm envious, because it's like I have the opposite thing. But I love the tip of just, it's not just like, I know a ton of stuff about wellness. I mean, I've been talking to wellness experts for 3.5 years every week, and I've learned so much. But it's, like you said, getting back into our bodies. It's not just like what we know up here and integrating that. I think it's so important. I'd love if you could give us another tip like that, another tangible takeaway before you tell us where we can find you. Something else that somebody listening to this can take with them after this episode.
Absolutely. So, I mean, something practical is piggybacking off my recent point is, with all the knowledge out there, how do you implement it? Because there's so much, it's overflowing with information, right? So here's what I want them to know. Knowledge probably isn't the bottleneck. Your understanding is probably fine, especially if you're listening to a podcast like this. What's missing is that repetition of certain concepts and frameworks. So what you can do today is stop adding more concepts, like actually start pulling back on the concepts and focus on a few key ones that really resonate with you. Everybody's got different things they resonate with, right? But you're going to know when you resonate with it. You're just going to feel it. You'll be like, that makes perfect sense. Wow, that really clicks. Okay, yeah, that seems reasonable. So pick like 2 or 3 micro practices that your body actually responds to really well, and then just try to do them more, right? And eventually you do them and it stops becoming a discipline. It just becomes a habit to where you're looking forward to doing them, right? Because a lot of times it can feel like chores, eating perfectly, doing your deep breathing at this time, reading your book, doing your Epsom salt bath 3 times a week. It starts to feel like a job, right? And
Yes.
it's supposed to calm you down. It's not supposed to stress you out, but sometimes that's what it comes down to. I know because I've definitely been there, right? I'm trying to be healthier, but I'm just so regimented that I'm stressing myself out. So, if you have this like mental list of things that you feel like you have to do, dial it back, right? Let's focus in. Let's be like it's almost like focusing a laser on a few key items versus shining a flashlight on the whole room. So when you shine the flashlight, try to do everything. It's pretty overwhelming, and then you're not able to implement any of it to its fullest potential. So I'd stop adding more concepts. Actually, probably dial it back. Pick 2 or 3 things that really resonate with you and that feel like are actually working or that just make the most sense for you.
I love that. That's such great advice. I think I talked about this on the podcast, but I got to a place where you'd be like, okay, what's a perfect morning routine? And then I would wake up and be like, oh, well, I have to visualize, I have to meditate, I have to journal. And then I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I have 7 things that and then I just say, forget it. I'm not doing any of it because it's
Yeah.
like, it's too much. I'm overwhelmed, instead of going, okay, what is really the most, what makes me feel the best? What are the things that I love that I'm like, this really made me feel amazing. This was the perfect way to start my day. And then recreating that. I still am working on that. That is something
Yeah. Yeah.
that, you always evolve. I've had different things help me at different times. And right now I'm just like, I'll just sleep as long as possible because that's the most important thing to me right now, more than journaling or anything else. But there are pockets of the day where we can, like you said, help our bodies feel safe, find a practice. I love to go and touch the grass out in my backyard every time I have a minute. And so finding something that is micro, like you said, so we don't feel like, oh gosh, this is just another thing on my to-do list, which is stressing me out and is stressful. So I loved this conversation so much. Thank you so much for coming on. Please tell our listeners how they can find you, work with you, all of the good things.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jess, one thing I love about you is you're constantly showing up for your audience, giving massive value. So that inspired me to do the same. I put something special together for your audience. It's something that we normally reserve for our highest level premium members. My clients might actually be upset that I'm giving this away, but I wanted to over deliver for your audience. It's called a recovery roadmap protocol. So it's not for somebody who just wants like a magic pill or a quick fix, like an overnight cure or something like that. It's not for somebody who isn't open to new ideas and willing to look at things differently. But it is for somebody who is dealing with a lot of mysterious, debilitating symptoms that the doctors just can't explain. And if you feel like you're doing everything you can in recovery, but you're still like really confused and frustrated, then it's probably for you, right? Because like I mentioned earlier, recovery isn't about doing more. It's about doing like the right things at the right stages, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't know what stage you're in, you can end up wasting a lot of time and energy without even knowing it. So there's 2 parts to it, right? Part 1, it's the recovery stage identifier. It's a short diagnostic that shows you exactly where your nervous system sits on this, the scale of recovery in terms of timeline, why what you've been doing probably hasn't worked, and what you should probably be focusing on right now, right? So for most people, that alone, just figuring out where they're at, is the biggest relief they felt in months. And then part 2 is what I'm most excited about. I honestly debated if I should include this, but it's the personalized recovery report. That's the internal tool we use for our premium clients. So it's a detailed, personalized analysis based on your data, your responses that show you what you need to change, what to double down on, and also what order. So I set up a page specifically for this podcast. It's www.cfsrecovery.co/glow, GLOW. I just please ask that you guys don't share it around because this is only for you guys. So once again, if you want the recovery stage identifier and the personalized recovery report, It's cfsrecovery.co/glow, and you'll be able to get immediate access to that.
That's so nice of you. I'm going to put that link in the show notes for everybody. So just hop over to the show notes and click the link. I'm sure a lot of women are going to. I'm definitely going to be doing it. And thank you. Thank you so much for offering that. Thank you so much for sharing with our audience. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.